The human just lifted the Ravager beast, as if it were some cuddly toy, completely oblivious to the fact that it's one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. My fourth appendage quivered so violently I nearly spilled my calming nectar. Who does that? Honestly, who in all the spiral arms of the galaxy would even think of doing that? My assistant curator, Bloop, a being from a crystalline electronic species whose communication is an intricate melody of chirps and hums, emitted a sound that suspiciously resembled a snicker. You know, they said, they're gleaming facets refracting the triple sunlight. You might want to stop overreacting every time a human does something unexpected. They've been in the Galactic Federation for 6 cycles now. I slapped all 6 appendages against my desk, sending my prized mineral collection into a precarious wobble. Overreacting? Overreacting. Bloop. That thing has acidic blood and teeth strong enough to cut through reinforced polysteel. It's officially designated a Class 9 predator. The only reason it's even in our intergalactic zoo is because the Federation mandates it for educational programs. Bloop's crystalline surface rippled with light in what I recognized as their "I'm about to school you" glow. Not only did the human pick it up, they said with a pause, no doubt for maximum dramatic impact, but they also gave it belly scratches. I froze, my primary heart skipping a beat while my secondary one started to shut down as if it couldn't cope with the absurdity. Images from earlier that morning flooded my mind. The new human zookeeper, Kai Rodriguez, strolling into the Ravager beast's enclosure during feeding time as if they were taking a leisurely walk. Me, frantically shouting for lockdown protocols and emergency evacuations. The rest of the staff placing bets on how quickly Kai would be reduced to a steaming puddle of organic goo. And then it happened. The creature purred. I muttered, still unable to reconcile the memory with reality. It purred like one of those small earth mammals they keep showing in their holo videos. Bloop's laughter, soft, crystalline chimes, filled the room. Oh, that's not even the highlight. Did you hear what happened when Administrative Director Foll came down to check on the emergency? I groaned, my appendages curling in secondhand embarrassment. Please don't remind me. Bloop's light patterns sparkled with unrestrained amusement. The Ravager was sprawled out on its back, all 8 limbs in the air, completely blissed out, while Kai was scratching its belly plates. And when Director Foll demanded an explanation, what did your brilliant new human say? Oh, this big ol' softed just needed some affection. By the way, your response time on treat delivery is awful. I've been waiting 15 minutes. I took a long, deliberate sip of my nectar, attempting to regain some semblance of composure. Bloop, I've dedicated 47 cycles of my life to the study of xenobiology. I have 17 advanced degrees in interspecies behavioral sciences. I literally wrote the book on predator management in controlled environments. And today, in the span of a single morning, one human has turned everything I thought I understood into nonsense. Bloop's light softened, their tone becoming almost consoling. Perhaps that's not such a bad thing, Chief. Maybe it's time to see things differently. Have you even heard what they did with the Void Stalkers in Section 7? Bloop asked, their crystalline surface shimmering with mischief. My nectar went down the wrong tube, sending me into a fit of coughing. The what in where now? Ah, right, they replied casually. You were too busy having a meltdown over the Ravager beast. Turns out Kai decided the Void Stalkers looked lonely. So, naturally, they introduced them to something called a laser pointer. I stared at Bloop, my appendages frozen mid-motion. Before I could begin unpacking that statement, the zoo-wide announcement system crackled to life. Attention, all staff, came the unmistakably cheerful voice of Kai Rodriguez. Could someone please bring 3 extra-large bottles of bubble solution to the toxic spitter enclosure? Also, does anyone have a spare squeaky toy? The one I gave the Shadow Leaper didn't survive. Oh, and to whoever left that note about safety protocols on my locker, thanks for the concern. But really, the Nightmare Wraith just needed a bedtime story. Once you get past the soul-draining gaze, their adorable snuggle bugs, I slowly lowered my now empty nectar bottle, my 4th appendage twitching. Bloop, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with delight. I need something stronger than nectar, I muttered. A lot stronger. Actually, Bloop added, their tone positively gleeful. Kai mentioned bringing something called hot chocolate to tomorrow's meeting. Apparently, it's a human comfort drink. I snorted. Knowing humans, it's probably made from the venom of a deadly earth creature and fermented in a supernova. The announcement system buzzed again. Quick update. If anyone spots a small earth hamster near the administrative offices, don't worry, she's harmless. Although, maybe don't mention to Director Foexel that she reorganized their files. Who knew hamsters had such strong opinions about alphabetical order? I slumped forward, all 6 appendages sprawled in utter defeat. Bloop, yes, Chief Curator, schedule me for a vacation. A long one, somewhere without humans, or animals, or anything that could be turned into an animal by a human. Of course, Chief Curator, Bloop replied, their light pulsing in amusement. Although, you should know, Kai already submitted a proposal for a bring your pet to work day. The sound I made was not quite a scream, more like the guttural groan of someone whose understanding of the universe had been shattered one too many times. I gestured wildly at the staff break room, where the latest affront to scientific integrity was unfolding. I would like to formally object to this. There, in the middle of the room, Kai was hosting what they called a tea party. The guests? Oh, nothing special. Just a void stalker in a bow tie, 2 baby shadow leapers wearing party hats, and, of course, the Ravager beast, still answering exclusively to Miss Snuggles, now adorned with a frilly apron. I think it's delightful, Bloop remarked, their crystalline form sparkling in what could only be described as pure joy. Since Kai arrived, we've had 0 incidents with danger specimens. They call it, what was the phrase? Spreading the love? That's not the point, I hissed, watching in horror as Kai poured steaming liquid into delicate teacups. Those are apex predators, not guests at some Earth tea party. They're supposed to inspire fear, not sip Earl Grey and nibble on crumpets. Kai glanced over at me, grinning like they hadn't just unraveled centuries of xenobiological research. Chief, come join us. Miss Snuggles was just saying she'd love your insight on intergalactic tea etiquette. I buried my face in all 6 appendages. I don't need a vacation, I mumbled. I need an entirely new universe. Actually, Kai's cheerful voice rang out, making me jump, curse those overly sharp human hearing capabilities. It's chamomile tea. Earl Grey makes Miss Snuggles a bit too excitable. Last time she had some, she spent 3 hours chasing her tail. Adorable, yes, but not exactly dignified for a Class 9 predator. I stared in disbelief as the Void Stalker, a creature that literally feeds on fear and thrives in absolute darkness, delicately lifted its teacup with a shadowy tendril. Was it extending a pinky? Do Void Stalkers even have pinkies? Kai continued, as oblivious to the chaos they'd unleashed as ever. Oh, that reminds me, they said, their voice chipper as they absently scratched what might have been the Void Stalker's ear, assuming it even had ears. I've been meaning to ask, can we start a therapy program? My secondary heart, which had only just recovered from yesterday's catastrophes, promptly shut down again. Therapy program? Yeah, Kai said brightly, as if what they were saying was the most logical thing in the universe. The Nightmare Wraith in Section 13 is really good at absorbing negative emotions, and I thought it might help with the stress levels in the administrative district. You want to use a Nightmare Wraith for therapy sessions? I asked, each syllable weighed down by the sheer impossibility of their suggestion. Exactly, Kai beamed, clearly unbothered by my horrified tone. They scratched behind the Void Stalker's head, neck, shadowy mass. I've been calling him Dr. Snoodles. He's already helped Director Foexel with their anxiety about quarterly reports. Beside me, Bleep Bloop's lights pulsed in rapid excitement. Is that why the director's been so calm lately? Yup, Kai replied cheerfully. Turns out, combining nightmare absorption with weighted blankets and hot cocoa works wonders. Dr. Snoodles is incredibly professional. I even got him a little clipboard. I stared at the scene before me in stunned silence. One of the baby shadow leapers, notorious for stalking prey through their own shadows, was batting at a ball of yarn. Its sibling was curled up in Kai's lap, purring loudly enough to shake the teacups. But, I sputtered, gesturing feebly at the absurd tableau. These are dangerous specimens. They're supposed to be studied, observed, not given their best lives. Kai finished helpfully, offering Miss Snuggles another crumpet, which the Ravager beast accepted with perfect etiquette. By the way, Kai continued as though I hadn't just had a mental breakdown. Did you know shadow leapers love laser pointers? We've been using them for exercise. It's way better than their usual hunting patterns. Plus, it cuts down on the paperwork involved in explaining why someone's shadow disappeared. At that moment, the door burst open, and Director Foexel floated in, their gelatinous form glowing with what could only be described as bliss. Kai, just the human I needed to see, they burbled. The meditation sessions with Dr. Snoodles are a huge success. Workplace stress has plummeted, and the board of directors wants to expand the program to all intergalactic zoo branches. All 8 of my knees nearly gave out. All branches. Wonderful. Kai clapped their hands, eliciting a delighted chirp from the shadow leaper in their lap. I've already started drafting a training manual. Of course, not every branch will have someone with Miss Snuggles' belly rub expertise, but I'm sure we can work around that. Miss Snuggles, the Ravager beast whose acid-dripping mandibles could dissolve polysteel, purred like an overindulged housecat, looking positively smug at the compliment. I sagged into a chair, utterly defeated. Bleep bloop, I whispered hoarsely. Yes, Chief Curator, add existential crisis therapy to my vacation plan. Speaking of training, Kai began, pulling out what I immediately recognized as a datapad filled with fresh trouble. I've been brainstorming ways to enhance our educational programs. You know how kids on school trips are always fascinated by the more dangerous specimens. Well, what if we— No, I interrupted, my voice barely more than a plea. Started a junior xenobiologist program where kids could, please no, learn about proper care and respect for all species through supervised interaction sessions? Director Foexel's gelatinous form quivered with enthusiasm, their bioluminescence intensifying. Brilliant idea. The public relations potential alone is astounding. I threw my appendages into the air, addressing the universe at large. Has everyone completely lost their minds? These are lethal creatures. They're not family, Kai interjected innocently, as the Void Stalker dabbed its non-existent mouth with a napkin in perfect tea party decorum. Actually, bleep bloop cut in, their crystalline structure pulsing in their data sharing pattern. Our analytics show remarkable improvements since Kai implemented these unconventional methods. We've gathered more data on social behaviors, cognitive processing, and emotional capacity in the last 7 days than in an entire decade of standard observation protocols. I swept my gaze around the room, the Ravager beast daintily nibbling on a crumpet, the Shadow Leapers playfully chasing a ball of yarn, the Void Stalker practicing flawless table manners, and Director Foexel vibrating with contentment. And there was Kai sitting smugly at the center of it all, with the kind of smile that could melt through polysteel. I started, then let out a long, defeated sigh. I need more mood-stabilizing nectar. Kai perked up. Why don't you join us instead? Dr. Snoodles has a free slot this afternoon, and I just got these incredible stress relief coloring books from Earth. At that moment, the nightmare wraith— No, excuse me, Dr. Snoodles— phased through the wall. It was wearing a tiny pair of spectacles and clutching a clipboard that somehow managed to look both professional and absurd. I glanced at my empty nectar bottle, then at the bizarrely serene scene before me. Does the tea come with sandwiches? I muttered. Cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off, Kai replied with a grin. Miss Snuggles insists on proper tea service, and that's how I, Chief Xenobiological Curator Kipthendel, ended up sipping chamomile tea with a Ravager beast, a Void Stalker, and 2 Shadow Leapers while a nightmare wraith took meticulous notes on my unresolved childhood issues. Asterisk breaking news, asterisk the holographic broadcast flickered to life on the wall screen in our staff room. In today's top story, the Central Galactic Zoo's revolutionary approach to predator care has sparked both admiration and controversy across the Galactic Federation. Are Death World apex predators just misunderstood cuddle bugs? More after this word from Zahn's mood-stabilizing nectar, now available in bulk sizes for stressed administrators. I turned all 4 of my eyes toward Kai, who was currently tossing a shimmering ball of space-time for a quantum viper to fetch. The viper caught it in 3 dimensions simultaneously before wagging its tail, or what passed for a tail, like an excited puppy. This is your fault, I said flatly, though 4 days of therapy sessions with Dr. Snoodles had dulled the sharp edge of my frustration. I know, isn't it great? Kai beamed, throwing the ball again. Good boy, Professor Wigglesworth. Asterisk Professor Wigglesworth? Asterisk, bleep bloop asked, their crystals shimmering with barely contained amusement. Of course, Kai replied, scratching the quantum viper under its chin, or at least where a chin might be. A distinguished name for a distinguished boy. I sank back into my chair, resigned to my fate. Bleep bloop, I murmured, remind me to increase the nectar order again. Thought we agreed you'd run all naming decisions through the committee after the Princess Murderfluff debacle, I groaned, massaging my temples with 2 appendages. Kai grinned, unbothered. Hey, the toxic spitter chose that name herself. She won't answer to anything else now. And she's really embracing the princess part. Did you see her new tiara collection? Before I could respond, the news broadcast caught my attention again. Breaking. Heated debates erupted in the Galactic Senate today after Ambassador K.R. Thlee accused humans of weaponizing cuteness. This follows viral footage of the infamous Ravager beast, now affectionately known as Miss Snuggles, leading an interspecies yoga class. I buried my face in 2 more appendages. The Senate? We've reached the Senate now? Oh, totally, Kai replied, retrieving the quantum ball from what appeared to be a different timeline entirely. They're fascinated by our revolutionary behavioral techniques, though honestly, it's just kindness and a lot of treats. Speaking of treats, Kai added, pulling out a bag labeled quantum treats. They're there when they're not. That's not even the biggest news. Bleep bloop Wigglesworth's lights flashed in their unmistakable gossip pattern. Tell them about the delegation arriving tomorrow. My primary heart missed several beats. What delegation? Kai scratched the back of their neck, looking sheepish, a look I had learned meant disaster incoming. So, you know how the Nightmare Wraith therapy program has been super successful? Turns out word got around, and now a delegation of Harbingers of Eternal Darkness is visiting to explore franchise opportunities. I blinked all four eyes rapidly. The Harbingers of Eternal Darkness want to open therapy offices? They're thinking of calling it Dark Comfort, where your fears go to die peacefully, Kai said, as if that were the most normal thing in the galaxy. Dr. Snoodles is thrilled. He's already picked out a wardrobe for his role as a consultant. The broadcast droned on. In related news, Void Stalker migration patterns have dramatically shifted, with the formerly terrifying creatures now frequenting populated areas, requesting Earl Grey tea and knitting supplies. Kai brightened at this. Oh, that reminds me, we should probably talk about the knitting circle in Sector 4. The Void Stalkers have been teaching the Shadow Leapers to knit, and now we have a surplus of tiny sweaters. I was thinking charity auction. I stared at them. A charity auction? Yeah, Kai beamed. We're calling it Knits for Nibblers. Proceeds will go toward establishing proper tea rooms in other zoos. Miss Snuggles is really committed to spreading galactic tea etiquette. Before I could formulate a coherent response, Director Foexel oozed into the room, their gelatinous form practically glowing. Kai, incredible news. The Galactic Education Board is revising the entire xenobiology curriculum. Kai's face lit up. They were now balancing a shadow leaper on each shoulder while Professor Wigglesworth attempted to exist as a straight line. Finally, I've been saying for ages we need more hands-on, or appendages on, or tentacles on experience in education. Foexel quivered with excitement. They want you to write the new textbook. They said your work is revolutionizing our understanding of interspecies relationships. I slumped back into my chair, utterly defeated. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Don't worry, Chief, Kai said with a wink. I'll dedicate a whole chapter to proper tea etiquette across apex predator species. Miss Snuggles already agreed to pose for the cover. Wonderful, I muttered, waving an appendage dismissively. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna check if Zahn's mood-stabilizing nectar comes in barrels. I'll need a lot more before tomorrow's delegation. I took a long sip of my nectar, now available in a convenient shoulder-mounted dispenser. So, let me get this straight. A human is going to write the new xenobiology textbook? Well, co-write, Kai clarified, looking entirely too pleased with themselves. Miss Snuggles has some strong opinions about the chapter on social etiquette. Dr. Snoodles is contributing a section on emotional intelligence across species, and Princess Murderfluff insists on a chapter about accessorizing and building self-confidence. She's already got the outline done. Before I could respond, the news broadcast chimed in with yet another surreal update. And finally, the Galactic Fashion Council reports an unprecedented surge in demand for tiny bow ties, sweaters, and monols, particularly in sizes tailored for Class 9 predators. Speaking of fashion, Bleep Bloop added, their crystalline lights pulsing in what I could only interpret as mischievous glee. Have you seen the latest accessory catalog? Miss Snuggles is featured in the winter collection spread. Kai practically glowed with pride. She's a natural, though we did have to be careful with the lighting. Void Stalkers can get a bit possessive if they're not the center of attention. Speaking of which, has anyone seen Mr. Midnight? He was supposed to be practicing his runway walk for next week's fearsome but fashionable charity gala. As if on cue, a shadow detached itself from the corner of the room, coalescing into Mr. Midnight. The Void Stalker was draped in a vintage smoking jacket, and I watched in disbelief as it struck a pose before gliding across the room with all the poise of a high-fashion model. Kai clapped enthusiastically. Perfect timing. Those poise lessons with Princess Murderfluff are really paying off. Remember, Midnight, dramatic entrances are all about balance, existential dread, and refined elegance. I stared, slack-jawed, as Mr. Midnight adjusted the lapels of his smoking jacket with an ominous tendril and gave what could only be described as a smoldering look before resuming its glide. I think I need to lie down, I mumbled. Oh, that's perfect, Kai exclaimed. Dr. Snoodles just finished setting up his new relaxation grotto. He's been experimenting with aromatherapy, lavender mostly. Turns out nightmare wraiths are incredibly skilled with essential oil diffusers. Director Foexel wobbled with excitement. The lavender sessions are divine. I do recommend keeping your eyes closed, though. Watching a nightmare wraith delicately handle tiny glass bottles can be unsettling. Speaking of unsettling, Bleep Bloop interjected, their lights flashing in their characteristic gossip pattern. Have you heard about the talent show? I immediately regretted asking. What talent show? Kai grinned and I braced for impact. Oh, it's going to be amazing. The Shadow Leapers have formed an a cappella group. Miss Snuggles is working on an interpretive dance routine, and Mr. Midnight is performing slam poetry about the inevitability of entropy. Let me guess, I sighed. The acid drool is a problem? Kai nodded. We're working on stage reinforcements. You know how passionate Miss Snuggles gets about her art. The news broadcast made one final announcement, as if to hammer the last nail into my sanity. In a stunning development, the Galactic Peace Council has proposed nominating human pet therapy for the Cycles Innovation in Diplomatic Relations Award. The program has been credited with unprecedented improvements in interspecies understanding and cooperation. When asked for comment, the human representative responded, "Everyone just needs a little love, and maybe some belly rubs." I turned to Kai, who was now showing Professor Wigglesworth how to properly accessorize with a quantum scarf. "This is your fault," I said flatly, though the heat had long since drained from my words. Kai just beamed. "I know. Isn't it wonderful?" And with that, Mr. Midnight recited the opening lines of a poem titled Shadows in the Void, Whispers in the Light. I glanced at my shoulder-mounted nectar dispenser, wondering if there was a stronger setting than emergency, and then back at the absurd tableau unfolding around me. A void stalker strutting down an improvised runway with deadly grace, a quantum viper wagging its tail as it retrieved a multidimensional ball, shadow leapers adjusting sequined performance outfits, and a nightmare. Wraith carefully lighting lavender aromatherapy candles with what could only be described as unsettling precision. Kai, yes, Chief Curator? Kai replied, popping up beside me like an enthusiastic shadow leaper. Do you think Dr. Snoodles has any openings in his schedule today? And could you bring some of those cucumber sandwiches, the ones Miss Snuggles approved? Absolutely, I'll check his calendar. And wait until you hear about next week's meditation retreat. The Harbingers of Eternal Darkness are collaborating on a cosmic horror mindfulness workshop. It's going to be life-changing. Before I could respond, we were interrupted by the arrival of the Health and Safety Inspector, VX Zilch. Their sensory tentacles were already knotting themselves into what I assumed was bureaucratic distress as they took in the scene. A void stalker was meticulously grooming a shadow leaper while a conga line of toxic spitters, led by Princess Murder Fluff in her Tuesday tiara, snaked through the room, humming what sounded suspiciously like Don't Stop Believing. I don't even know where to start, the inspector stammered. Regulation 7-249B, subsection Gamma clearly states that all Class 9 predators must be contained within quantum-reinforced enclosures at all times. Kai stepped forward with their usual unnerving calm. But if you check Appendix Q13, added last week, you'll find the Snuggles exception clause. The what? Zilch's tentacles paused mid-knot to frantically scroll through their datapad. The Snuggles exception clause, Director Foexel said, oozing into the conversation with their trademark enthusiasm. It was ratified by the Galactic Senate after Miss Snuggles' heartfelt testimony on the therapeutic benefits of interspecies cuddling. Truly inspiring. There wasn't a dry eye, tentacle, or void tendril in the chamber, especially after her demonstration on how to serve proper consolation tea during diplomatic crises. I opened my mouth to question why I hadn't been informed about the Senate testimony, but before I could speak, Princess Murder Fluff and her acidic conga line swayed by again, their synchronized movements leaving faint scorch marks on the floor. Oh good, the dance workshop is going well, Kai said cheerfully, though we should probably alert maintenance about the rhythmic acid drooling. The inspector's tentacles had gone completely rigid. Dance workshop, they repeated faintly. Part of our Express Yourself, Don't Suppress Yourself program. I found myself explaining, wondering when exactly I'd become fluent in Kai's brand of madness. It's been remarkably effective at reducing territorial disputes. It's hard to stay aggressive when you're learning the cha-cha. Speaking of self-expression, Kai interjected, we should head to the main stage. Dr. Snoodles is about to give his keynote address. From Nightmare to Nickmar, a journey of self-discovery. The inspector's voice pitched into the ultrasonic range. Nightmare wraiths don't speak. They communicate through terror and existential dread. PowerPoint, Kai said simply, as though this explained everything. With animated transitions. He's really proud of his slide designs. Zilch's tentacles trembled as they reached for their own nectar dispenser. Do you think Dr. Snoodles has any openings in his schedule? And maybe one of those plushies? Kai grinned. I'll see what I can do. Oh, and Miss Snuggles insists you try the lavender cookies during your session. They pair wonderfully with the tea. I watched as Zilch's tentacles finally gave up and flopped limply to their sides. For once, I couldn't blame them. Of course, Kai beamed, their enthusiasm as boundless as ever. Though I should warn you, the waiting list for the Advanced Interspecies Snuggling Certification course is pretty long. But don't worry, we also offer beginner workshops in fundamental friendliness and basic belly rubs. I watched as the inspector, their sensory tentacles still twisted twitching slightly, was gently escorted away by 2 therapy-certified shadow leapers. They were already beginning to look more relaxed under the leapers' soothing, professional care. You know, I mused to no one in particular. Maybe the galaxy wasn't ready for weaponized cuteness. Oh, speaking of weapons, Kai piped up, practically bouncing in place. Wait until you hear about next month's program, Converting Your Cosmic Horror into Cosmic Harmony. A musical journey, the harbingers of eternal darkness are forming a choir. The holoscreen behind me flickered to life, broadcasting the latest breaking news from GNN. Asterisk live from the Central Galactic Zoo. This is GNN with exclusive coverage of what many are calling the Great Awakening. Or, as it's trending on quantum social media, #CuddleRevolution asterisk, I adjusted the bow tie I now wore regularly, part of Mr. Midnight's exclusive collection, of course, as I turned to watch the broadcast. On screen, Miss Snuggles was meticulously arranging a bouquet of acid-proof roses for what had to be the most improbable event in galactic history, the first interspecies peace and harmony summit, hosted by none other than former apex predators. Can you believe it's only been 2 standard months? Bleep bloop chimed, their crystalline form shimmering in what I could only interpret as nostalgia. Remember when you used to scream every time Kai entered a dangerous enclosure? To be fair, I replied, straightening my bow tie again. Mr. Midnight had been very clear about maintaining proper accessory etiquette. That was before I realized Miss Snuggles had such strong opinions about proper posture during diplomatic negotiations. Miss Snuggles, the Ravager beast herself, glanced up from her flower arrangements and gave a small, dignified nod of approval. She looked every bit the diplomat in her custom-tailored suit, complete with compartments for her acid glands and a matching hat that somehow exuded both menace and charm. Speaking of diplomatic negotiations, Kai said, appearing as if by magic, balancing a tray of cucumber sandwiches while serving as a jungle gym for 3 baby shadow leapers. Has everyone seen the agenda for today's summit? Director Foexel oozed in, their gelatinous form gleaming with excitement. They, too, were decked out in formal attire, a miniature version of Miss Snuggles' diplomatic suit. Oh yes, they bubbled. I particularly love how we've scheduled regular tea breaks between the Understanding Through Hugging workshops and the Converting Cosmic Horror into Cosmic Harmony seminars. The news continued in the background. In an unprecedented move, the Galactic Senate has officially recognized snuggle diplomacy as a legitimate form of conflict resolution. This follows last week's historic meditation session between the Quantum Separatists and the Unity Collective, led by Dr. Snoodles and his team of certified nightmare therapists. Oh, that reminds me, Kai said, perking up yet again. Dr. Snoodles wanted to know if we could adjust the lighting in the main conference hall. Apparently, it's hard to maintain a professional atmosphere when your form keeps accidentally manifesting attendees' deepest fears. Already taken care of, Bleep Bloop replied proudly, their lights pulsing in a pattern that screamed efficiency. I shook my head, trying to process the surreal reality that had become my daily life. 2 months ago, I would have called this madness. Kai grinned, offering me a cucumber sandwich as one of the shadow leapers chirped happily on their shoulder. And now, I looked around the room, at Miss Snuggles arranging flowers, at Mr. Midnight coaching a group of void stalkers on their runway walks, and at Dr. Snoodles, who was quietly practicing his next PowerPoint presentation on the art of managing cosmic dread. And now, I admitted, taking the sandwich, I'm starting to think madness was just the first step toward brilliance. We've installed the new comfort-optimized spectral illuminators. Bleep Bloop chimed, their crystalline structure glowing with pride. They're calibrated to make even existential dread feel inviting. Before I could respond, the convention center doors burst open, revealing a spectacle that would have sent my past self into cardiac arrest. A parade of the galaxy's most dangerous species, impeccably dressed and accessorized, radiating an aura of peace-promoting sophistication. The Void Stalkers glided in first, draped in their custom-made diplomatic robes, complete with void pocket storage for interdimensional essentials. Following them was a choir of harbingers of eternal darkness, their robes bedazzled with slogans like peace through understanding and glowing with embedded crystals. Quantum Vipers flickered in and out of reality, somehow managing to stay coordinated enough to carry Choose Love banners that shimmered across multiple dimensions. Places, everyone, Kai called out with their usual unshakable cheerfulness. The Galactic Press will be here soon, and we need to make a great first impression. Princess Murderfluff, your tiara is slightly crooked. There, perfect. Mr. Midnight, remember, intimidating with elegance, not through terror. Dr. Snoodles, your therapy certificates are floating out of phase again. Can someone tether those to this dimension, please? Meanwhile, the news continued in the background. Applications for the Reforming Ravagers program have exceeded all expectations. Formerly deadly species are now leading workshops like mindful menacing and converting your kill list into a kiss list. I couldn't take my eyes off the summit preparations. Miss Snuggles had taken her place at the main podium, adjusting her acid-proof note cards with meticulous precision. Above her, the summit's theme banner hung proudly, from predator to predictor, forecasting a future of friendship. You know, I said to Kai, who was currently preventing a baby void stalker from accidentally devouring the decorative void lights. When you first arrived, I thought you were going to destroy everything we knew about xenobiology. Kai grinned, somehow balancing that grin with simultaneously coaching a group of shadow leapers as they rehearsed for the opening ceremony's dance of dimensional harmony. And you did, I admitted, waving a hand at the surreal, yet harmonious, scene before us. You absolutely destroyed everything we knew. And somehow, I trailed off, gesturing at Dr. Snoodles, who was leading a pre-summit mindfulness session for nervous delegates. At Princess Murder Fluff, giving a masterclass in proper tiara etiquette to a group of junior toxic spitters. And at Mr. Midnight, meticulously critiquing the fashion choices of arriving diplomats with what could only be described as menacingly high standards. Somehow you replaced it with something better. Kai's grin softened into something almost reverent as they adjusted the bow tie of a particularly jittery shadow leaper. Thanks, Chief. I told you, everyone just needs a little kindness. Even void stalkers and ravager beasts. Miss Snuggles stepped up to the podium, her voice reverberating through the hall with calm authority. Ladies, gentlemen, and multidimensional beings, welcome to the first Interspecies Peace and Harmony Summit. Today, we prove that the galaxy's fiercest can also be its friendliest. The audience erupted in applause, or the closest approximation their species could muster, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel something alien. Hope. The announcement system crackled to life, this time with a melodious harmony provided by the harbingers of eternal darkness themselves. Their deep, resonant voices filled the hall, a strange but effective blend of terror and tranquility. Welcome to the first Interspecies Peace and Harmony Summit. Emotional support shadow leapers are available in all conference rooms. The Understanding Your Inner Monster through Interpretive Dance workshop will commence following Miss Snuggles' keynote address. From ravenous to ravishing, a journey of personal growth through proper tea service mindfulness sessions with Dr. Snoodles are being held in the Tranquility Garden on a first-come, first-served basis. Oh! Kai suddenly snapped their fingers, nearly dislodging a shadow leaper from their shoulder. The Galactic Education Board wants to know if you'll co-author the new Xenobiology textbook series, Cuddling Your Way Across the Cosmos. A new approach to interrelations. I looked around at what my life had become, a nightmare wraith adjusting tiny, perfectly round therapist glasses while scribbling patient notes. Miss Snuggles practicing diplomatic handshakes with acid-proof note cards. Void stalkers making last-minute tweaks to their piece through fashion exhibition, and shadow leapers offering emotional support via expertly choreographed shadow puppetry. You know what? I said, finally smiling as I adjusted my bow tie one last time. I think I am ready to rewrite the books on xenobiology. Though we should definitely consult Miss Snuggles about the chapter formatting. She has very strong opinions about proper margins. The announcement system boomed again, the harbingers having clearly mastered the art of balancing awe-inspiring terror with warm encouragement. Please take your seats for the opening ceremony. A symphony of species featuring the Void Stalker String Quartet, the Shadow Leaper Dance Ensemble, and special guest conductor Dr. Snoodles leading the Harbingers of Eternal Darkness Choir in their debut single, Every Horror Needs a Hug, as I took my seat between a meditating quantum viper and a toxic spitter carefully aligning their acid-proof bow ties. I couldn't help but let out a small, incredulous laugh. Somehow, this ragtag orchestra of chaos had transformed into the galaxy's greatest force for good. The galaxy had indeed changed, and, impossibly, it had changed for the better.